Now, if we think about what our outcome is, well, I want to sell the business in 3 years. And we know the broker model is flawed and it's becoming redundant. We know we need to build a system, a machine that's demonstrable to an investor, or indeed an asset that works for us. So what are the phases that make that happen? Number one, we build our assets. And again, I'm going to power through this. Build our assets. So when a new company joins us, typically we have a 30-day, 90-day first game plan, which gets them through what we call traction. So whether they're a 7-figure plus business or they're doing 100K, this is to get traction and to get the actual monkey off the back. Shit, this double R works, or whatever it might be. And we actually get the leads in and we get the matching candidates in. But bigger picture, we're talking about building a real business here. So assets might, for example, include the following. Number one, we monopolize a niche. Monopolize a niche, i.e., we are the leader in that niche. How do we do that? Number two, if there are 10,000 clients, I want 10,000 in your database. If there's 50,000 clients, 50,000 candidates, I want them in your database. So data. Number three, authority. Why is it that some of our members are getting 350K per placement? They're pretty damn cool already, but it's the authority. And we've got maybe a client attainment system. Why is it some members can come in and move straight into dealing with Fortune 500 businesses without a track record? Because we've got positioning, but also we've got leads. Well, is it Ken McCarthy? You can go listen to the podcast on iTunes we did before Christmas. Ken joined us about 6 months ago and went from 300K a month is the model in place now. And you'll hear how he tripled his fees and he went fully retained, 100% retained. Within 6 months, completely turned it around. So an asset for him is also being 100% retained. Another asset could be the social. It moves on and on. But what we're doing is building assets. So if you came to me and said, there are 10,000 clients in the niche, or 10,000 in my data set, pretty darn good. It's also good for an investor. But I'm more worried about you getting paid first of all. So as a real business owner looking into the multiple seven figures, we build assets. Next, we leverage those assets. We leverage those assets. So we plan out what it's going to be for the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days. We leverage those assets. So rather than most businesses, our team come in and they just do their stuff. It may be fairly targeted. We may look at our market and say there's 10,000 clients in this niche. One of our outcomes is we want to have 12 touch points with every single one of those in the next 120 days. Or it might be a different metric, but we leverage the asset we've built. We're very strategic. And if we know that we get a response rate of 37%, we know for every 100 responses, we get 15 calls. Of the 15 calls, we get 7 clients. Very quickly, we've got a linear model we can scale. So we leverage the asset. Now, here's where I've seen the biggest failure point and the biggest win for those doing 7 figures. And I'm talking specifically about businesses who come to the inner circle and they've been below 7 figures, never hit 7 figures, then they hit it, and they hit it. So what normally happens when someone gets to their first 7-figure year and we do our planning for the next 12 months, the next 3 years, they will say, Andy, I'm going into a new niche. And 99.9% of the time, I will say, do not go into a new niche. But they still do it. They still do it for various reasons. So we go into a new niche. However, what we should be doing is remembering what is our outcome. Well, I want to earn X amount in my pocket. I want to be taking that X amount of the business. I want to be selling the business in X amount of years. But we forget our fundamental plan. So you go into a new niche. And typically, we've then got business 1. And we've just done 7 figures. And we're happy. And we've got business 2, which we start. Typically, this will go down to 750K or around that sort of figure. And this business is going to struggle. 99% of the time, what we should be doing is scaling inside this niche. And we do it one of 2 ways, depending on the niche. Number 1, we may well be scaling from a, I'll call it volume approach. But by that, I mean, if there's 10,000 clients or 10,000 candidates or 5,000 or 1,000 or 100,000, whatever the number may be, very quickly, we know what we can do every 30, 90, 120 days. So we can just literally run an automated process and get predictable outcome results. Or it could be we're dealing with, say, there are only 50 clients in this niche or 500 candidates in this niche. One of our outcomes might be to get 20 points of contact in the next 90 days or whatever it might be. So our model becomes around what our outcome is. So when we talk about scale, it's not just scale in terms of actual numbers, it's scale in terms of outcome. If you think about what we're actually doing here, it's a very simple model. Number 1, we're getting a lead, whether it be client or candidate. Number 2, we're actually getting the role, and we're converting, conversion conversation. Number 3, we're delivering and getting paid. It's very simple, but we lose sight of what actually our outcome is. So if you are in the position whereby you're 250, half a mil, getting to the 7 figures plus, taking this view of asset leverage scale is key. Is key. If you do this, the feast and famine will not be happening. If you do this, you're going to have consistency. If you do this, you'll have assets, which for me, a huge outcome for members who are looking to get through that level. So that's number 1, when we speak about feast and famine. Number 2, when we speak about the whole process of overwhelm, and we then get into, well, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. And depending on what your structure is, whether it be a flat structure, whether you've got 10 consultants, you've got 2 consultants, it's just you. It's tough being the leader at times.